A warning now to our viewers. We are about to show you video of today's killing on the streets of Minneapolis, and it is graphic. Several agents surround the 37-year-old man who is on the ground, apparently trying to get him under control. Officials say he was armed with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun and violently resisted being disarmed.
Doing too much, man, and they keep pushing people, you know.
Let's bring in Jonathan Fahey, the former acting ICE director. Jonathan, if you've seen that video of today's shooting, your reaction?
Well, that was the first time I saw that, but it does look like this person, just from that glimpse, is he's resisting. And if he's armed and they knew he was armed, it was imperative for them to take him down to keep them safe. And all of this talk about what's happening, we don't know the facts need to come out. I agree with that, but these officers very well could have prevented a major mass shooting of multiple officers today, and they are putting themselves in harm's way. And it's unfortunate when somebody dies, but again, people like Governor Walz and Jacob Frey, you would hope instead of tamping down the rhetoric, they come back out swinging, trying to sort of fire people up again. It's really shameful.
I want to play a soundbite from the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey. Here's what he had to say about the shooting this morning. Number one, control room.
Not a single broken window, not a single injury. Those peaceful protests embody the very principles that both Minneapolis and America was founded upon. Conversely, the mass militarized force and unidentified agents who are occupying our streets, that is what weakens our country. That is what erodes trust in both law enforcement and in democracy itself.
So he talked, Jonathan, about peaceful protests, but if you're going to a protest, you might take a sign, but why do you have to take a semi-automatic handgun and a couple of high-capacity magazines?
Yeah, exactly. And act like it's an achievement to have a peaceful protest really shouldn't be that impressive. But these people, by and large, have, for the last couple of weeks, they've been impeding ICE. They've been blocking them in. They've been doing all of these things to prevent them from doing their job. So it's really, the fact that he's saying that he's just plain wrong and he knows it. But the worst part about it, he's talking about our democracy. Well, part of our democracy is we have elections and we pass laws, and the executive branch enforces the laws, and he's using his authority to prevent the law from being enforced. It's a complete subversion effort by him and Governor Walz, the likes of which we have not seen probably since the Civil War, where the state is just basically saying, hey, this is a no-go zone for immigration enforcement, and both Walz and Frey have said that, and that's remarkable. And the president not only has a responsibility just for the immigration law, but for all laws in general, to not let that stand. You can't have a state, you can't have a politician, and you can't have some activists decide what federal laws get enforced, where they get enforced. It's really outrageous conduct. And one point that Paul Morrow made during the last hour as well, which I think is great, is during the riots of 2020, remember, probably the worst handled riots were Minneapolis, and the two common denominators, Walz and Frey. Walz was, trying to ingratiate himself with the rioters, while Walz was figuratively hiding under a desk. And we saw what happened in Minneapolis, and they seem to be intent on having it happen again. Yeah.
Speaking of Tim Walz, the governor there, here's what he posted on X. He says, I told the White House the state must lead the investigation. Let state investigators secure justice as we process the scene. Stay peaceful and give them space. The state has the personnel to keep people safe. Federal agents must not obstruct our ability to do so. Well, if history is any guide, you mentioned the situation in 2020 when scores of businesses were burned by the Floyd rioters in Minneapolis, and the governor didn't do much of anything for several days.
Right, and they burned down a police station and they didn't do anything. And also, the important point is this will be a federal investigation, and even if the state were to try to charge one of these officers, they would be immune under the supremacy clause. But it doesn't make sense to have a joint investigation or anything else when one side, and remember, before any of this happened in May of last year, Tim Walz was calling ICE the Gestapo. So he's not exactly coming at this in good faith in any respect. So there's no reason that they should work with him and no reason to think it would add any value. They should investigate the case, make a determination, and that should be the end of it. And then Minnesota could do whatever they want, but prosecuting these agents is something that's not going to be ultimately successful if they try to do so, but they may try it anyway.
Here's a statement from the Border Patrol, their post on X. They say, "We have pleaded with and warned the media and the politicians that their irresponsible and hate-filled and false rhetoric is going to get people unnecessarily hurt or worse, killed when they portray our agents and officers as the aggressors. They have encouraged these reckless confrontations and attacks on our agents and officers who are performing their lawful duties and enforcing the laws that Congress has put on the books." Tim Walz and the mayor don't seem to agree, don't seem to recognize that they're trying to enforce the laws.
Yeah, that's the most shameful part of it all, because they have state laws they want enforced, and they wouldn't want the federal government standing in the way or other people standing in the way of that. But any way you look at this as a political issue, these agents should be left alone. They are enforcing the laws passed by Congress, and they're supposed to do so. They don't have an option. And President Trump mindfully doesn't have an option either. He has to enforce the immigration law. And a lot of people think just because Joe Biden was so derelict in his duty, somehow that should carry over to President Trump. And one more point that, Jacob Frey made some comment about politics and this whole thing. Well, this whole thing is politics, but it's from his end of it, because his end of it doesn't want illegal aliens deported from the country because they see them as electorally beneficial for them. And he sort of leaves that out. But that's really the core of this whole thing, because President Trump is making this country safer. We had the lowest murder rate since 1900. It's actually working. Jacob Frey and Tim Walz know it's working for the American people. And that's almost why the rhetoric and the behavior has gotten so much worse, because President Trump has been so successful with his immigration and with his crime policies.
Yeah, how local would you say and how organic would you say these protests are? I mean, you have some experience in this area. Do you think these are all just local Minneapolis folks who have decided to go out on a sub-zero day and organize these protests or join them?
That would be that would be quite surprising if they were somehow just an organic protest. These are organized, and they were organized back in 2020, the protests/riots, and they've always been organized against ICE. And, I think during one of the earlier shows today, they're talking about how all the signs are the same, and all of these things just show there's a coordinated effort for these protesters. And not that you can't have a coordinated protest, but it just shows really there's this underlying political motivation at play, and there's really not, the issue isn't ICE or ICE tactics. The issue is amnesty for the illegals here, and that's what they're fighting against. And this idea that every time, no matter what happens, Walz and Frey come back with the same refrain, which is ICE should go home. No, the answer should be the illegal aliens should go home. ICE could stay, because ICE is the one that's lawfully allowed to be there. The illegal aliens are ones that are not allowed to be there.
It is amazing to me how differently some people can see the same situation. Former acting director of ICE, Jonathan Fahey, thank you.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.